Welcome back, Awakening Beauties. So good to have you with me today. My name is Robin, if this is your first time joining me, and this year has been a no-buy year for me. And if you want to see that journey from beginning until now, I have a playlist and I will link it below and you can catch up. So as those of you who have been watching will know, the reason I started a no-buy year was because I just needed to sort of reset my relationship to spending. I found myself spending in a very unsustainable way last year, and especially during the holidays, it got pretty bad. So I decided I would do a no-buy year and I would spend some time examining my reasons for overspending and what was going on with me. And I've had some realizations. I've had, some aha moments during this time, and I'm sure I will continue to have some aha moments. I'm making a plan for what next year's focus is going to be on as far as my own personal self and as far as any videos that I'm making on this channel. I mean, I'm not super niche down on this channel. If you will notice from all of my topics, I cover a wide variety of things. I'm a fashion designer, so I love fashion. I love makeup. I love beauty. I love clothes. I love style. I love skincare, healthy living, and wellness. But I also love spirituality. I love getting deep into some of the deeper stuff. And, haven't made many videos about that kind of stuff lately, and I'm sure I will at some point get back into that topic. But right now I want to talk about debt. And if you're struggling with debt, you are not alone. Most Americans are struggling with some form of debt, including myself. And so I was thinking a lot about what are the lies that we tell ourselves about debt. And so I want to talk with you guys and see if this resonates with any of you. What are some of the lies that you find yourself saying about debt? So lie number one, I can buy now and pay later. Well, that's not really a lie because that's true. There are payment programs with many different things that you can buy that you get 0% interest for 12 months or 18 months. And so this sets up a habit of instant gratification. And in this world that we live in, we've really become a culture of instant gratification. There used to be a time where you would have to save up for the things that you wanted, that credit cards were not so easily accessible. And I remember for myself saving for certain things, like saving for a vacation. The first time my husband and I went to Europe, and I had a savings plan. I had it like an Excel file. I knew how much I needed to put away every week so that we could afford to take that trip. And we did. That's how we saved up for it. We didn't put anything on credit cards except for maybe a few purchases while we were on our trip. But it leads to impulse purchasing when you can buy now and pay later, which leads to accumulating a lot of debt if you're not careful. So if you're going to I am not against those plans, by the way. I am not against, if you need, for instance, if something in your home breaks and you have to go to Home Depot and you have to, I'm trying to think of an instance, but there have been times where something has gone wrong and like our air conditioner. We had to finance our air conditioner because we didn't have the money saved to pay for it when our air conditioner broke a couple of years ago. And they offered a payment plan through, it was Wells Fargo credit card, and it was 0% interest if paid off within 12 months. So, it was like $6,000. So what I had to do is I made a budget. I put a payment plan automated into place that the payments were automatically taken out at the right time so that the payments were never late and that it was paid off before the 12 months was over. So if you're going to do something like that, you've got to be diligent into putting a payment plan into place that's automated to make sure that amount of debt gets paid off before the interest comes due. Because if you don't, then you're going to be stuck with, $600 or more of interest that you're going to have to pay. I think for us, yeah, it would have been a significant amount that we would have had to pay in interest for that air conditioner. But if you're going to do something like that, if it's for something, sometimes you have to pay for something that is necessary, like an air conditioner. But sometimes it might be something that you just kind of want, And if you're going to do that, figure out, if it's 12 months or 18 months, how much you have to pay every month to make sure that it's paid off and by the time that it's due. And can you afford those payments to come automatically out? Don't rely on yourself to go online and make the payment. No, set it up so that it's automatic. And that's the only way that I would recommend that you do a 0% interest, because sometimes we have to. Sometimes things happen and we don't have the money saved, and that's where we really need to have an emergency fund, and we'll talk a little bit about that later. Get out of the habit of thinking you can buy now and pay later. Lie number 2, everyone has debt. It's normal. Accepting it as normal sets in a complacent attitude. And then the potential is to continue to accumulate debt because you feel like it's normal. And everybody has debt. Well, that's not true. Not everybody has debt. Whenever you are tempted to make a purchase that you know that you can't pay off within that month, start asking yourself questions of, how would it feel to be debt-free? The first question would be, do I really need this? And how would it feel to be debt-free? What things could I do and experience if I were debt-free? Start dreaming about the life that you will have if all of your debt were paid off and you didn't have any debt payments. That's what I'm starting to do. Dream about that debt-free life, because I want that debt-free life. So don't tell yourself the lie that having debt is normal, because it's really not. We can get into some stuff about how these corporations and how the culture in this country has been set up to keep us slaves of debt. You think about in feudal times when there were peasants and they just worked the land, and that was how they existed. And people were unhappy and they rebelled against the royalty and the powers that be. And so giving people the feeling that they own things, but that you don't really own things, the bank owns them. But you feel like you own stuff. But are we really slaves to the system? Good questions to ask. I went off script here thinking about all of this. Lie number 3. I'll never get out of debt, so why bother trying? It sometimes feels that way. I've said in the past that I will always have an auto loan, because once my car got paid off, then my husband would get a car. Once his car got paid off, I would get a car. And we just sort of went back and forth like that until there was a point where for several years, we both had our cars paid off and we kept our cars. My aunt always says, you can be car poor. And it's true. Look how expensive cars are these days. Those car payments can be very expensive. We don't necessarily need to get a new car. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we don't really have a choice in it. We got to get something to get us around. But thinking that we're never going to get out of debt is a defeatist attitude. It's important to recognize that there are strategies and resources available to you to help you to get out of debt. Most of these are like credit counseling, which are federally regulated. They can help to give you unbiased information to help you make a decision that best meets your needs. And you can also call the credit card companies, and often, like I've done this before, when a credit card, I couldn't get it paid off. This was many years ago, but the interest rate was very high on that card, and we had, unfortunately accumulated quite a balance. And so I called them to negotiate a lower interest rate, and they did. And even at other times, you can work out agreements with them to cancel the fees associated with, former late payments, or like I said, renegotiate a new interest rate, or work out a payment schedule with them where fees and additional interest don't accumulate. These are possibilities if you just take the time to call these companies. So one of the things I found on a Forbes article, which I'll link below, was that you can make a workout agreement, a hardship plan, or a lump sum settlement, which is often lower than what you owe. And so these are all options for you. There are ways to get out of debt. There are ways to pay things off. Sometimes getting credit counseling is going to be very beneficial for people in helping them to work out a budget if they don't know how to work out a budget. So never think that you'll never get out of debt, because there's always a way, and it may take a little bit of time, but it is possible. Ooh, lie number 4 that we tell ourselves about debt. I'll start saving once I'm out of debt. Now, I used to work for a financial services company, and the thing that I learned first was to pay yourself first. And that's sometimes hard when you have a lot of debt, and you might say, man, there's nothing left over. But usually there are things that we're spending money on that we don't need to be spending on, like going to Starbucks, eating out. There's things that, we can start eating at home. We can start preparing our own coffee at home, and pay yourself first. That is what I learned. So that's with an emergency fund. Even if you're just putting $25 a week, and set it up automatically. With your bank, you can set up a savings account, and automatically you can have the money transferred out of your account on your payday, or once a week, or whenever you want. And that's what I still do. I have money automatically drafted out of my checking account to go into my savings account every week, so that I'm continuing to put money in that savings account as an emergency fund. Lie number 4 that we tell ourselves about debt. I deserve this. I will worry about the consequences later. Well, I don't think you deserve something if you can't afford it. And have I done this? Absolutely. I have spent money or put money on a credit card or a payment plan, PayPal payment plan, when I couldn't afford something, this whole sum right at the moment, and paid it off over a period of time. But if you don't have the money to pay it off when it comes due, then you don't deserve it. You're not entitled to everything. This is something that we need to learn as a society, is how to be self-disciplined and not entitled to think that we deserve anything that we want just because we work hard, just because we're having a bad day. I mean, most of the time when I would go on shopping binges was when I was having a rough time in life, and it was sort of therapy. It was retail therapy, as they say. And in the same vein of I deserve this is, I just want this one thing to make, and I won't want anything else. I've heard people say that. Oh, I just want this one thing. I want to go to this one concert. I want this one experience, and then I'm going to buckle down. I won't want anything else. That's another lie that we tell ourselves, thinking that we're not going to want something else, because once that thing is past, or once the newness of that shiny thing is over, then we're always going to want something else. And we have to learn to be self-disciplined and be content with what we have. Lie number 6, I'll pay this off. I'm going to buy this thing, right? And I'll pay it off when I have more money. Whether that be when I make more money, or when I get my bonus, or I'm going to win the lottery. I've heard people say that. Or when I get my raise? When I get my raise, when I get my bonus. some other windfall. Maybe they're waiting for a settlement from a lawsuit or something like that. Well, you can't count your chickens before they hatch, as they say. And I worked for a company once that promised me bonuses, and I never got those. I was anticipating raises that I never got. So we never know. We can't know what's going to happen in the future. So we need to live as if that's not going to happen. And then if it does happen, that's a nice, it's a nice little boost in your income, and you can put that in savings, or you can take that trip that you wanted to take. But not until. So stop assuming that your financial situation is going to dramatically change in the future when you really don't have proof that it will, and you don't know that it will. And so you might accumulate some debt, a significant amount of debt, anticipating that thing's going to happen, and then it doesn't happen, and then you're stuck with that debt. So create a realistic plan based on your circumstances now, and budget for what you actually make now. Line number 7 is thinking that making minimum payments is enough. If you're being charged interest, which probably most of you are, then making a minimum payment is really not good. Because if you take a look, and it'll usually have a section on your credit card statement of, if you only make the minimum payments, this is how long it's going to take you to pay it off, and this is how much interest you're going to end up paying. And that can be quite shocking, because even a balance that's not very high, if you're only making the minimum payments, could take you 5 years or more to pay off. So make more than the minimum payments required. Do your best to pay things off every month. And if you can't, then set a plan in motion from some other things that we were talking about to pay it off as soon as you can. Line number 8, and I've heard people say this. When I was working as a financial analyst, I would hear people say, oh, it's not that much debt. Really downplaying the amount of debt that they had. And this is a way for people to rationalize their financial situation. I guess it's all relative as far as how much debt people have and whether they think it's a large amount or not. And going back to the lie that everybody has debt. So, it's that entitled attitude of deserving this home, this vacation, this car, these clothes, and thinking that, it's not that much debt. But if it's something you can't pay off when the bill comes due, then really it is too much debt. And yes, I have a mortgage and I have other debt, and I've been guilty of these. I don't want you to think that I'm preaching at you. I have been guilty of thinking these same ways. And I have debt that I'm trying to pay off. I want to be debt free. I don't want to be a slave to the system anymore. So, I'm preaching to myself in all of these things that we're talking about here. I don't want you to think that I'm just preaching at you guys. I'm trying to make the changes too in my life. I don't want to try to rationalize my debt by saying, it's not that much debt. Any debt, no, in my thinking, is too much debt. And it's going to take a little time for me to get out of it. But I will. I am determined that I am going to get out of debt. Lie number 9, I can borrow my way out of debt. Which is such a weird thing to think. And I've done this. I've taken out home equity loan to consolidate debt. And ultimately, I sort of regret that. Because what has happened as a result was, like, all of those credit cards or other debts got paid off by being rolled into one big payment. And what happens? We continue to use those credit cards. We continue to build up additional debt because it's like, you kind of feel like, the slate's been wiped clean. I have my one payment to my equity line. So Yeah, that is a slippery slope right there. And by doing that, it's like you're not facing the consequences. You're not facing the reasons of why you got into debt in the first place. And it also is sort of like not creating healthy habits of budgeting and cutting expenses and finding other sustainable ways of paying down debt. I do not recommend taking on another loan to pay off your debt. I do not recommend borrowing your way out of debt, because it's not changing the habit that you're in of creating debt. And it's like I said, sometimes what people do, and I mean, guilty, I mean, this is going back years in my life, but using a home equity line to pay off some debt, which ultimately I don't think helped at all. I don't think it helped me at all. And I think it was a mistake. And I probably wouldn't do it again if given the chance. Given the chance to go into debt. Yeah. Lie number 10. I don't need a budget. I know where my money goes. I'm calling on that. I don't think that people really understand where their money goes. If you don't have a budget and you say, oh, I know what I spend. I go out to eat, 4 or 5 times a week. I know I'm spending my money there. But when you see your money in numbers broken down in black and white versus what you make and then what all the deductions are, and these are little, well, they're not so little anymore. Going to Starbucks, you're spending $10 going to Starbucks. And I don't go to Starbucks. I don't spend money on coffee shops anymore. And very rarely do I do that, because that stuff adds up. If you went every day, some people's habit is to go every day. You're spending, let's just say $8, $7 to $8 times 7, over $50 in a week. $50 a week times 52 weeks in the year is over $2,500 that you're spending on going to frickin' Starbucks. So you do need a budget. You need to sit down and say, this is what I make. Here's my non-negotiable expenses, such as your rent, your mortgage, your car payment, maybe a loan payment that you have. Okay, these are things I have to pay every month. Now, what's left over? So that you can budget. You can budget for your groceries. You can budget for your entertainment and budget for your financial goals. Let's not forget, we haven't even talked about saving for retirement. And that's a whole other subject. Maybe we will get into that at some point. But by not having a budget, you are setting yourself up for overspending and not having a clue where your money really goes. So creating and maintaining your budget is a crucial step in managing your finances effectively. I can't overstate this enough. I have always had a budget, and have I stuck to my budget? No, not always, but I always have kept account through accounting software of where my money is going, which is why I can do, like I've done the first, second, and third quarter State of the Union addresses about how my spending has been going this year. And I've had good news and I've had some bad news. And I see areas where I need to improve. And then there's other ways that I see that I'm congratulating myself that I've stuck to my budget. So it's sort of like a roadmap. If you don't know where you've come from and where you're planning to go, then you're just sort of drifting at sea. It's important to have a financial roadmap as well. Well, friends, I hope you've enjoyed this video and it maybe has given you something to think about. And if you have any questions or comments for me below, please leave them. I'd love to know what you're doing. Are there other lies that maybe I didn't cover here that people tell themselves about debt? What are your goals for 2024? We're almost there. Have you set some financial goals for yourself? Let me know below. And this is a good time. This is a good time to think about debt, because it's really challenging when we get into the holiday season, when we see all these sales and these great deals and buy things that we've been wanting to buy, or maybe we never even thought about buying that thing, and now we're thinking about buying that thing. And we tell ourselves lies about debt, that we're going to pay it off at some point in the future. It's a good thing to think about during this time of the year so that you don't get in over your head and that you don't go into 2024 with a huge amount of debt. I'm still paying off Christmas from last year, if you believe that. I have a 0% interest. I talked about in point number 1. And I set up a payment plan to get it paid off, and it won't be paid off until February of next year. And that was the debt that was accumulated last year. So I don't want to accumulate a lot of debt this year for Christmas. I'm trying to be more mindful of how I spend this year and going forward. That's the whole reason I did a no buy year. Well, anyways, I hope you have a great rest of your week. And until next time, be kind to yourself. Tell yourself some good things. Go look in the mirror and tell yourself that you're a wonderful human being. And remember, you're doing great.